1972 here. Of course, you also know me as Brian. So, maybe it's Thursday, 11:39. Oh, it just turned 11:40 p.m. at night. And I guess sometime last week was my last video. I did, in that previous video was my reviews of films I've recently seen. And so as you see on the title, this one is also films I've recently seen. I'm going to try and be more brief. Well, not brief. I'm going to try and make this video shorter than the previous one was, because I think my last video was over an hour. I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to take that long to do this one, but okay. So let's just get some things out of the way first. There's a few things I want to say. First off, if you want to fast forward during any part of this video, that's fine. I'll put that title up too, saying exactly what I'm saying right now. And the next thing I'll say is, before I talk about the actual films, I'll give you the time that the actual film part, the film reviews of this video start. So if you don't want to hear all this stuff I'm talking about now, you can fast forward. So, all right. So, anyways, I just want to say a few things. I mentioned, I believe, in my last video, maybe the video before that, I mentioned a YouTuber named Daisuke Beppu. I'll put his name up there. He does. He's done a lot of. I think he covers every single criterion that comes out. He's got a vast knowledge of movies, and he doesn't just cover criterions, but he covers criterions. That's one of the things he does, and his extensive videos and lots of very articulate about speaking about movies, and he even has a Q&A video where you can ask him questions and then he'll respond back. And I think he's into his 15th or 16th video on that. So, anyways, and what I was going to mention about him was he was going to do a stream on Dr. No. I do not know if that's happening this June or not. I mean, I guess he said it was going to happen, but he said he didn't know when. So, but if it is, or maybe it'll be July, who knows? I'm not sure. But check his channel, Daisuke Beppu, and maybe there's a video on there where he tells when he's going to show Dr. No. I'm sure if he's going to do stream on Dr. No, he'll put it up. The James Bond movie, the first James Bond movie with Sean Connery. Okay, so I got that out of the way. Next thing is L.J. Draco, who inspired me to do the Yojimbo thing at the start. The Yojimbo, only adults 18 and older, or Yojimbo will get mad. I got that inspiration from L.J. Draco's movie channel. He's now started to do things with his videos where it says before the intro, his usual intro, and then the rest of his video, he does disclaimer. Would that be the right word, or warning, or whatever, saying this video is only for people 18 and over. So that's where I got my idea to put the Yojimbo in. So thank you, LJ. And I also want to say about LJ, he's been doing these series. He's going to do 4 on, I guess he calls them artistic people. His first was on his partner, Alice. His second one was the guy who I believe designed his website logo, and has done some other artwork. And then, but then this coming Saturday, he's doing one on a friend of mine, and a friend of his as well. And I highly recommend you watch that. I don't know if I should say who it is. Well, I guess I'll say who it is because he said it was. He said he was going to do him. So his YouTube channel is Sexy Monkey, otherwise known as Sasha. So, and I guess he'll cover his because Sasha likes to do when he gets movies in the mail. I think especially with like British DVDs and Blu-rays, he doesn't like the warning signs, because I guess, well, from what I see on his videos, when I see him opening a British movie, it has all these signs on it saying, only adult this, only this age, all these warnings, and he doesn't like that, so he makes his own custom sleeves, and he takes the regular sleeve out, and puts his own in. So he uses his computer to do that. He sent me a few Blu-rays in the mail at the start of this year, and I don't think on both of them, but I think it was Apocalypse Now that he sent me. He did a custom sleeve artwork for that, so check out his channel. You won't be disappointed, and he does streams as well. And he invites basically anyone to come on. He wants, he's a nice guy to talk to. Very, operates like a gentleman, and very, very. Very kind ear, will listen to you, and is very good at discussion, and he just has great streams, and so and he sometimes he announces his stream like after he shows he hasn't done it too recently, maybe a few times recently, but he used to do videos where he showed what he got in the mail, but like if he does a custom sleeve video, or if he I don't know, video on something else, like his recent Blu-ray player, then he might say, I'm going to do a stream in the next day or so, hope to see you there. So that's why I mentioned him. So anyways, okay, I think I've covered everything. So let's get to the movies now. This is kind of amazing for me because, last week was like 22 minutes or something when I got to the movies, and here we are at 7 minutes and 55 seconds. So, all right. So, I've watched a lot of movies too this week. I watched how many movies? 15 movies, and I think they're all films on Shudder. I have stopped all my streaming services. I don't have any of them left. I mean, I do have the free ones left, but the ones I paid for, I'm not using currently. So I had Shudder for about a few months to watch Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In, and most of these titles come from his show that he picked. And then a few of the other titles are on Shudder, but I watch them independent of his show. So, but anyways, okay, let's get to the movies. Okay, first off, we got Troma's War. Troma it is a studio that was founded by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Herz. Was it the late 60s and the mid 70s that it came into being? But they're like the last independent studio. Like Miramax was bought by Disney, and Roger Corman's New World was bought. I don't know. I think Lloyd Kaufman says that that he's the only one left who hasn't been bought by a major studio. And the great thing about Joe Bob Briggs' show, The Last Drive-In on Shudder, is you get to meet the people that actually worked on the movie. He also has very interesting commentary on why such a movie is important, or even flaws in the story. And also just interesting commentary on life in general, because, Joe Bob Briggs, that's not his real name. His real name is John Bloom, but he was a valedictorian of his class at Vanderbilt University. I think that's in Arkansas. And then he has Darcy. Oh, and he tells some funny jokes too. He does that as well. And then he has a woman named Darcy, the mail girl. That's not a real name, but she brings mail to him that she handles tweets, while the show's going on. Technically, it's not really going on. It's been taped, and they show it on Fridays on Shudder, where you're supposed to think, I think, that he's on right then on Friday, and they have that on Shudder TV, which is like if you turn the TV on and things are already on instead of a streaming service. It really is streaming. It's programmed for certain time periods, like a regular TV channel. But then if you go into the rest of Shudder, then the rest of that is just pure your own choice of streaming at your own time. So he is streaming. It premieres on Friday, and then you can watch it, any day after that, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever. A week from then, 2 weeks, whatever, okay? And he's done some specials. He did a Christmas special. He did a Thanksgiving one. He's done 2 seasons of The Last Drive, and he did one. His first one, I think, was maybe 5 films, and it took I think that one just went into the night, and I think one of the shows he did, there was so much traffic on the internet trying to access his show that Shudder crashed. So, but he's very, very erudite, very articulative, very interesting guy. So his Troma's War was one film he showed. Came out in 1988. It was directed by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Herz, the founders of Troma. Lloyd Kaufman went under a different name on this film. I think it was because of it was because of Directors Guild guidelines. So he just faked his name, which is not a problem now, I guess. Came out in 1988. I was thinking when I saw this film I wasn't going to like it. I didn't love it, I suppose. But I was sort of surprised because I've seen, how many Troma movies have I seen? Maybe just one other, and then I saw one that was distributed by Troma. The one I saw that they made was Terra Firma. I wasn't wild about it. A friend of mine was in it. I did a review of Bloodsucking Freaks. Maybe that was last week. I'm not sure. That's a film they distributed. It's kind of disgusting, but yeah. But I was, it did have some parts in it that made me kind of wince or thought was low taste. Joe Bob Briggs said to Lloyd, he says, every Troma film you do, it seems that you always have people that fart on it in the movies, and I found that kind of in bad taste when I watched it. It was off-putting, and the production values are not stellar, and I guess that's part of the Troma mystique, But anyways, it starts off this group of people that they've been on a plane and they crash land into this island. And I had no idea. Should I know it? The credits. You hear the sound of the plane going down, the radio transmission. I think people, screaming at the top of their lungs, but you don't actually see the plane go down. And then after the credits, you see the wreckage of the plane, and the remaining people and the dead bodies on the shore of the island. And but these and what was impressive about it was, because maybe they couldn't do a big budget crashing of a plane, they faked around it. So I thought it was kind of clever that way. And I thought they did maybe put a little effort in because, you know, you saw broken up hunks of airplane on the island. So maybe it had a little mystique to it. But and you find out that they witness that these terrorists are going to take over the U.S. and that they're terrorists from all over the place, you know, communist countries. I don't know if there's Middle Eastern terrorists, but, you know, and it has some gross out humor, which I'm not too fond of. Maybe that's just not in my inclination. There's a film I'm going to get to here that I thought I could find some kind of solace, some kind of solidification, some kind of way of justifying that it might be entertaining film. Well, I'll get to it, and then you'll see what I mean. But anyways, it was entertaining. Troma's War. So it was good, but it's not an excellent film. It's fun. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Next one's a Japanese movie. It's called One Cut of the Dead. It was directed by Shinichiro Ueda. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I better learn how to pronounce Japanese better because I'm trying to save up for Japan, and hopefully next year I'll be going. But anyways, it's about these Japanese filmmakers. They're making a zombie film, and as they're making it, they find out they come across real zombies, and that the place that they're filming at is an actual place where maybe it's biological experiments were done wrong or something. And then after all of it supposedly ends, there's all these credits. You see the credits. But there's a story after that, after the credits end. So it's not quite what you think it is. It's kind of a clever idea. I saw this first at the Jacob Burns Film Center during the Halloween marathon. And I liked it. Did I say it came out in 2017? It was shown at a Japanese film festival. And I think they didn't have big hopes for it. And then I think they showed it just in 2 places in the world. Maybe one was Italy, and I can't remember. But I think the budget was pretty minuscule, and it really made a lot of money all over the place, you know. So yeah, I recommend this movie. 4 stars, and 2017 is when it came out. Next one is the third Exorcist movie, The Exorcist 3. From watching Joe Bob Briggs' show, the director of the film, who was the novelist of The Exorcist, and I think he wrote the screenplay for The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty, he wasn't intending this film to be the third Exorcist film, or even technically, well, Joe Bob was saying Exorcist 2 was a disaster, was awful, you know, just they really dropped the ball. So I think what he wanted to call it was from one of his novels called Legion. And Joe Bob was saying an interesting thing about the film. He was saying only a writer would explain things in dialogue from characters rather than visually show it, that a director would do. And so, you know, William Peter Blatty's a novelist, so he has the dialogue. He's very, maybe the dialogue is interesting, but it gets in the way. It becomes too, not cute, but too on the nose, too not subtle, trying to sound like Shakespeare and really drawing attention to itself, I think. I mean, some of the dialogue was kind of interesting, but I don't know. It just was a little, maybe a little laid on too thick. And then there are scenes, Exorcist scenes, where George C. Scott is in the film and he plays a police detective, and he's interviewing, what's his name, Jason Miller, who was a priest in The Exorcist, and the director wanted to have Brad Dourif as the character, but the studio insisted that Jason Miller do the possessed person in this jail cell, and a hospital jail cell, kind of a place, padded room. But the thing about Jason Miller at the time, when this was made in, I think, 89 or 90, he was an alcoholic, I think, and the alcoholism was destroying his brains. He was having trouble remembering the lines. So they had to put Brad Dourif in parts of that scene and just mix it together. It's a disaster. You see, I guess it's not heaven. I guess it's purgatory. I think George C. Scott is dreaming it, but then his priest friend is saying, "Oh, I had the same dream too." I think that's what he says. And but purgatory is really weird. You see Fabio, if you know who I'm talking about. He's that muscular, long-haired, muscled guy, blonde hair. You see like a jazz band, I think, in purgatory. I thought it was heaven initially. You see a bunch of weird things that don't make any sense, and I don't know what they were thinking of. Maybe if you don't want to watch a whole film, you just YouTube that particular scene. Maybe it says Exorcist 3 Purgatory. Really weird as hell. It just doesn't make any sense, So it was a real letdown, 2 stars. And it does have this scene where it's supposed to be the best jump scare in horror history. The scare that comes forward kind of made me jump, but the one where it lays it in, I don't know. I don't think I was too shocked, but it was supposed to be really shocking. Enough of that. Next one is a film I really enjoyed called Deadbeat at Dawn. It's directed by Jim Van Bebber. He's a Ohio native. And this is some of the information I found out because I'm watching Joe Bob talk about the film and all. He went to community college in Dayton, which is a very high acceptance rate, but not a very high threshold of graduates. So I think he was a dropout, and what they would do is and this film was made in '88, and what they would do is they would borrow the film equipment during the weekend and return it during the week, and I think they didn't legally use the film equipment. They just stole it, sort of. Werner Herzog, the German director who did one of my favorite movies, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, which I highly recommend. He said about making movies that, if you can't buy a camera or borrow a camera, steal one, he says. Of course, now you got, iPhones, you got, cheaper options. But anyways, at that time, in 1988, film cameras was the way you had to go. So I believe I think this was shot on 16 millimeter. The acting is a bit over the top, but what really saves this movie is the stunt work. Really, really impressive stunt work, because the director, who's also the main character, he edited the movie. He actually does some of the stunts. One of them, he jumps off a bridge and he goes into the water. And if he was like, I'm not exactly sure how far away it was, but if he had hit like 2 feet away or something, he would have hit concrete and he would have been dead. There's a scene at the end of the film. I don't know if I should give that away because it's just a really, really good film. He told the person that was acting to really to make the shot convincing to do something to him, the director, the main character, to make it look convincing, even though he would be in a lot of pain. And when he finished the film, he was in a lot of pain, but he still finished it. And he operates by this philosophy, which is pain is only temporary, cinema is forever. There's a scene where he's hanging, like rappelling down a outside parking garage, and the landlord who owned the parking garage, when he saw Jim Van Bebber hanging from there, he was saying, get off, and I think what Van Bebber did was he said, okay, and he drove away, and then he said to his guys, let's do it again, And some of the shots were he was like a guerrilla filmmaker in parts of this. He didn't get permits. Like there's a scene where there's a mattress on fire in the middle of a street. That's, that was done without permits. There's a scene where there's a school band going down the street, and that was done without permits. You can tell that he's shooting on the streets without a permit because the characters are walking down the street and people are looking towards the camera, so that it's like people are seeing, oh, this person is making a movie, I see. So that's what that is, But I really highly recommend this film, even though it has its problems with the acting and the dialogue is a little over the top. But this is a a fresh filmmaker, and he had been making films before that with like Super 8 and everything. So I recommend this highly. 4 stars. 3.5 stars. I'm sorry, not 4. But a really good film, close to 4 stars. This is good, really good. So close to excellent. Next film, I just do not think it really delivered. It's called Dead Heat, 1988, directed by Mark Goldblatt. It stars Treat Williams, whose name I'm aware of, but I don't know much about him. And Joe Piscopo, of course I know not too much about him either, but I know he was on SNL, and he played a bunch of characters on SNL. Saturday Night Live, I'm talking about. But God, was this an awful film? It's like it's a mishmash, a combination of different genres of films: the buddy cop film, a zombie movie. I don't know. It was just absolutely ridiculous because you didn't know what direction it was going to go in. Certain scenes didn't have logical. There are a lot of holes in the plot. It starts off with a shootout of 2 robbers coming out of a jewelry store, but they don't die, and they're zombies. And I don't know if I have to give you too much information, because I don't know. It's like if you walked in a thunderstorm, or I don't know, if you got stuck by the side of the road for an hour before a tow truck came, and then you got to Uber back to your house, that would be a better experience than watching this movie. Let's put it that way. It got tiring very quickly. And the 2 main characters become zombies, but then I think they maybe unbecome zombies. And Vincent Price is in this film, and it's just sad that his talents were wasted on such an incredibly bad movie. I don't know if anybody's happy that they made this movie. 2 stars, awful. Cannibal Holocaust is a film I'm next to talk about. This is a film to avoid. Now, I didn't review. I haven't. I own a movie called Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom. That's a subtitle for it. It's directed by an Italian director named Pier Paolo Pasolini. I might have talked about Salo a little here and there on my channel. The plot of Salo is these fascist politicians and military fascists at the end of World War II, before Italy surrenders. They take these young, like teenagers or maybe 20-year-olds, to this mansion in the countryside of Italy and subject them basically to all these sorts of tortures. And they're called the circles of various things that relate to Dante's Inferno, I believe. And even though that film is brutal, doesn't give you a second to relax or give you, how horror movies, you see horror movies and you see something brutal and then you can relax maybe for 5 minutes, or not just horror movies. Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones gets in trouble, and then at the start of the movie, and then he gets off in the plane, and then he's at his university to teach. So you get moments to breathe. But Salo is not that type of movie, and it's pretty extreme. But it has scenes like, the most extreme, probably the most extreme part of the film is they make the young people eat their own waste, that comes out of their body. Hard film to watch. I don't know if I could ever watch it again. I had a hard time eating things for 2 days after it. But it has a point to it, which is like how governments can go about and do corrupt things. Even governments like ours, like Iraq, how they treated the people in the Abu Ghraib prison. And one of the people that, maybe he was a photographer at the Abu Ghraib prison, who I think was an Italian, he compared that to Salo. He wasn't on the set for that particular scene, I believe, because Pasolini didn't allow a lot of people on the set. The scene I think he allowed him on was the scene where they are forcing the kids to, and they're really convincing scene as well, cut out their eyes and tongues with knives. But I think it's a point. It's a point. The point of the film is people in power can abuse their power and use it for their own ghastly ends. Pasolini was murdered for making this movie. I think the film came out in '75, and the person that murdered him was never brought up to justice. And Pasolini, I think, because of his because of who he was that maybe his murderer was never tried because of it, because he was a homosexual, he was a communist, and he was an atheist, and this is the Catholic country we're talking about. So, but yeah, so I'm digressing, but I'm not really digressing. I'm talking about Cannibal Holocaust. The plot basically is these filmmakers, they go down to South America or Latin America. I think it's South America, I think. And they want to find these cannibals. And they come, and so we know about that, and then they disappear. So they send another group of people down to look for them. What this film is, the hot cannibalism, I don't know if that was really hard to watch, because the human cannibalism I'm talking about, because I think it was just like, if they're eating organs, I think they were organs of animals, couldn't be humans, because that would be illegal. But and Joe Bob was saying that the director, Ruggero Deodato, who had made another cannibal film before this, he actually burned one of the huts that these Native Native American people lived in, Indian people, and they said he was like a dictator on the set, and but the scenes where they're murdering the filmmaking crew, kind of hard to watch. And then the other big thing that, well, yeah, animal cruelty, which is not simulated. It's actually done to a turtle, some kind of squirrel-like thing, and I think a few other animals I can't remember. And there's a little bit of the hardcore pornography in a way. I don't know if it's hardcore. Maybe it's more softcore. But you see some nudity, not just women's nudity, but frontal nudity of men. And I thought it was just exploitive for the sake of being exploitive and not trying to make any sort of point, and just trying to gross you out. There's a scene where one of the natives is raping a woman, and I think he's forcing. I don't think he's not using his. He's not having the sex himself. I think he's forcing a piece of stone into her body, and she's being dragged all through this mud. I just think it's in poor taste, and it really has no redeeming value to it. The director of the film, he asked the main actors in the movie that were, dead, to hide, and so the Italian law system, they thought they were actually dead, so they brought the director up on murder charges, and he cleared himself of those charges, because they found out, he hadn't actually murdered them. But then he was brought up on charges of animal cruelty, and the animal cruelty charges hadn't been brought up for a while. They were like older laws, but maybe he served some time. But, Oh, and let me backtrack for a second. Deadbeat at Dawn, the film I was talking about with the student filmmaker, Dayton, Ohio. There's one particular scene where there's a old car, they're using, they don't have coverage, they don't have stuntmen, they don't have coverage for, they don't have permission to shoot places, and but they used a few cars that were beat ups, that are ready for the junkyard, and they took one car and they threw it into this river. I think it was a river, yeah. And it sunk. Well, I don't think it sunk all the way. But the police, made an investigation as to why this car was in the water, and then eventually, they tie up loose ends, and they find out, Jim Van Bieber and his friend were that they find them at their film class, and they arrested them, and I think he was fined like a $500 fine. Maybe he served some time. I'm not sure. Maybe community service. Of course, I admire him because Jim Van Bebber of Deadbeat at Dawn, because of his dedication to authenticity and his passion. But Cannibal Holocaust, I can't possibly give anything to. Only good, I don't know. The lush the lush score, as Joe Bob said about it. Yeah, sorry about the mistake there. The only thing is the music is kind of good. The music is probably the best thing, but awful movie. Don't waste your time seeing it. You can do a lot better. You can read a real bad book. You can watch a real bad movie, but don't watch this film. It's not worth it. Cannibal Holocaust, 2 stars. Boy, I'm really taking my time here. Okay, 7th film we got is Mayhem, 2017, directed by Joe Lynch. I didn't write down the main character, the actor in it, but if you watch, I haven't watched most of it for quite some time. Walking Dead. He's I think he plays Glenn, the Asian American character. So he works at this dead end office job, and this virus strikes at this place that he works, and all these people just go out on a rampage, killing each other, having sex in the office, So one scene, they're literally not simulated having sex on a desk in the background. And it's sort of like an action movie in a sense, and they're using like staple guns and tasers and stuff and he's trying to get up to the top floor, but he needs clearance through different other people underneath the CEO of the company. It's kind of fun. I found it kind of fun. 3.5 stars. Next one is a Japanese film called Tetsuo, the Iron Man. Came out in 1989. It was directed, written, produced, and edited by Shinya Tsukamoto. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This was a weird movie. I can see how it can be compared to Eraserhead. I don't know if it really has a plot. It starts off with this Japanese man, and he's starting to get these metal parts attached to his body. And then at some point, I think it's the same character, a Japanese salaryman is being chased by this woman, and she is getting like metal all over her body, and then there's scenes where they're zooming down streets, and there's scenes where he's like propelling himself down streets like without touching the ground. It was weird, but kind of fun. And he has this giant phallic symbol coming out of his, private area, which is really weird, but kind of interesting. 3.5 stars. Next movie was a film that Joe Bob Briggs actually starred in himself. He just makes a minor appearance. He's not one of the major characters. It's called Hogzilla. Let me see, where am I? Okay, it's directed by Diane Jacques. This film was restored by Darcy, the mail girl who's on Joe Bob's show, and he makes just a brief appearance at the start of the film, and then partially in the middle, and then at the end. He's looking for his son at the start of the movie because they're hunting, and he loses him. And then, many years later, these journalists, these media crew, they're headed. I think there was a Hogzilla. There was this giant boar that was like a wild animal in the South, and they killed it. And it's based off of that idea. And it's basically hunting down this media crew that camps out in the wilderness of Georgia. I think it's Georgia where it's taking place. And Joe Bob makes an appearance, kind of as a creepy mountain man, kind of Appalachian guy. But there's if you watch till the ending, you'll see that it's not quite what it seems as far as Joe Bob's character goes. So it was fun, 3.5 stars. Next film, Joe Bob makes an appearance in as well, sort of towards the end of the movie. It's called Scare Package. It came out in 2019. It's an anthology film like Creepshow or Twilight Zone, or what's another anthology film you can Four Rooms would be an anthology movie. Anthology films are films within films. So like Four Rooms was like 4 movies. There were 4 rooms in a hotel. That's how they were linked. Or like New York stories with stories told in New York by Scorsese, Coppola, and I think Woody Allen, and Creepshow, a bunch of horror stories, short movies. Twilight Zone is right, would the right word be expounding on the television show? You know, like half-hour segments for a 2-hour movie. So there were many directors, and I just didn't want to write them all down. This was a good film, but I was kind of all over the place. Parts of it were good. I wanted it to end. I just thought it was kind of lame. Various tropes of the horror genre. I don't know if I should talk about this too much. I can't remember it all that much. Zombies, I think, and just boring. I'm sorry if Joe Bob is watching this and I said it was boring, because I know he makes a major role in this. I don't know if Joe Bob likes this film himself. No. Well, he said he liked parts of it. He liked how the film within a film of the movie. He liked that aspect, if I understood him correctly. But some of the stories he didn't really find that compelling, I suppose. Okay, next up we got is Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, came out in 1988, directed by Tony Randel. Couldn't quite see this as a good film. It sort of goes under that. Can't quite recommend this film because I didn't like the first Hellraiser that much as well. Hellraiser 3 I wasn't wild about. The guy who plays Pinhead, I think most people will be aware of who Pinhead is, even if they haven't seen the movies. He's a pretty iconic character in horror history. But, you know, he's a guy with a white face and the, like, you know, square marks on his head and the pins coming out. He has a bald head. I met the guy who plays Pinhead, Doug Bradley, at a horror convention. And he is a really nice guy. You know, like I've met George Romero. I've met, what's his name? Gunnar Hansen, who plays Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And all three of these guys, I got their autographs. And Romero and Hansen are very nice people. But they charge you like $28 if you want your DVD signed, another $20 for photo with them, another $20 or $40 for a photo signed by them, you know, like a photo on their table or something else that's on their table. So they just charge and charge and charge. I guess I understand, you know, maybe they're not making money in regular life, so they've got to make it somehow. Maybe there's a justification. But Doug Bradley just charged $20 at the booth, and he didn't charge anything more, you know. And then later on in the day, he was questioned, and you know, it's just very humble guy, and I think he's a very literate guy, and he's a good friend of Clive Barker, so I suppose that's how he was cast for that movie. I don't know if I understand it all of this film. They just go to hell. But it's sort of like a Hellraiser type of hell, not the stereotype of hell, I suppose. And they lost some of the budget for the film. Maybe it's a recession or something happening at the time. But hell looked kind of interesting, but it kind of looked cheesy too. So I can't recommend this film enough, so I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. So that's below 3, not good, a little fair. So, okay, next up we got Hell Comes to Frogtown. Came out in 1988, directed by Donald G. Jackson and R.J. Kiser. Stars Roddy Piper, the World Wrestling wrestler. he's not alive anymore, I believe. He starred in 2 iconic films of that year. This particular one and another film called They Live that was directed by John Carpenter, which is supposed to be like heavily symbolic and all. I've seen that film. I don't know if I'm wild about that film, but it's kind of interesting, I suppose, in certain ways. You know, that one he says the famous line, "I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum." You know, and his glasses see crazy people, not crazy people, evil people and the regular people that you can't see without these glasses. That's what's that movie called? They Live. So Hell Comes to Frogtown. Basically, the plot is there's been all these nuclear wars, and there's these mutated biological characters. They're like toads or frogs, but they have the bodies of men, and they're battling humans, you know, in an apocalyptic landscape. And Roddy Piper is hired because he's a man, and he has to impregnate all these girls that are in. He has to get these girls out of Frogtown and impregnate them so they can so the world can be more populated with human beings. It's cheesy. The director shot in a abandoned like steel mill. You know, if he hadn't the money to shoot it on 35 millimeter, Joe Bob says he would have shot on 16 millimeter. If not, he would have shot it on Super 8. If that wasn't the case, he'd shoot it on VHS. He was a really cheap filmmaker. I think this film was done a few thousand, maybe 15,000, and it made. I don't know how much it made. I'm not sure. Maybe it made a lot of money. I'm not quite. Can't quite remember. It's just fun. The frog makeup I thought wasn't too bad. You just gotta have fun with it. It's not gonna have high production values, but if you have fun with it, I think you enjoy it. So I give it 3.5 stars. So it's good, not quite excellent, fun, you know. Okay, next up is a film that Aaron Pinn put his channel up here. He does a lot of streams. You know, talking about sales. He did a stream today about the Severance sale, which, well, it's 12:32 in the morning right now, so the Severance sale's already happening. But that's what he was doing today on the stream. But he talks about sales. He talks about Giallo films. He really likes Giallo films. And he recommended a movie to me called Torture of Duckling that came out in 1972, and it's directed by Lucio Fulci. It's all about these child murders, and they're trying to find out who the person could be that's doing all these child murders. I don't know. He was saying it's such a great movie, and you got to see this, Brian. And so I watched it. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm into this Giallo stuff. It's just you know, because I told him, like, I'm not into murder, she wrote. You know, he was showing his television collection at his house and diagnosed as murder and maybe as Matlock. You know, my mother liked murder mysteries when she was alive. I don't like it because you find out who the murderer is at the end of the movie and there's nothing to chew on, nothing to think about after the movie. So I just 3.5 stars because it was interesting, but so that's a little more than good, but not quite excellent. You know, it's kind of entertaining, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna race back to watch it again. I watched it on Shudder, so I don't own it. So I don't know if I'd like to own it. Okay, so I've got 2 more movies. Okay, they're both directed by Park Chan-wook. They're both South Korean movies. These were very good movies. The first one, these are part of a trilogy. I own the second one in the trilogy, but I don't own the first and the third. The first one was called Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. A brother needs to get a kidney for his sister. So what does he do? I think he gives his kidney away for money, but he doesn't get the money, and so he and his sister have to they hold the little girl for ransom, but everything goes south with everything. Everything complicates. Sort of reminds me of Parasite, where things are just going. If you check my videos further back, the South Korean film that won Best Picture this year, Parasite, in that South Korean culture, things are not quite happy because like some people are poor, some people are rich, and some people are getting the short end of the stick and trying to survive, like his sister with needing a kidney, and the brother getting fired from his job, and so they're having to hold the little girl for ransom, and they're having the best intentions. They're not trying to. They don't torture the little girl. They treat her fair, but then something happens to her that they didn't intend, and the brother is deaf to make matters worse. For the plot is what I mean. And yeah, so really good movie, 4.5 stars. And last off, we've got, here I go again. I'm almost an hour in, or maybe with the intro and the outro, it's an hour. Lady Vengeance, 2006. Great movie. But I gotta say, I had a little trouble following this. I had to read the synopsis after I watched it to make things click and figure things out. So this woman is put in jail for a number of years because she's been accused of murdering a child, but she's innocent of the charges. And I think she converts to Christianity in the prison, but I don't think she means it in a genuine sense. I think she's just doing it just for I don't know. But once she gets out of prison, she's not I think she's going to try to find out who the true murderer is, and these parents find out that their kids have been, I think, tortured. They've been killed, but also tortured, I believe. And she helps them get, well, I shouldn't say that because it reveals them. And she's integral to finding the murderer with them. So I'll put it at that. So that ends the video. I can't believe I went on 58 minutes, but I did. Because I watch so many movies, obviously it's going to take longer. And, my praising of certain movies like Deadbeat at Dawn, I can't remember these, But anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching, and any comments are welcome. I hope to see you in the near future. I've been working on some garage band songs. I'm not sure when I'll put them up. I've got to add more stuff, take more stuff out. I don't know, but maybe you'll see me fairly soon, maybe with another week's worth of movies to review. Oh yes, television. I might do a few of my television series because my nephews, I believe, wanted me to watch Stranger Things. So I've watched, I think, 5 episodes. I fell asleep towards the end of the 5th episode of the first season, but I'm trying to plow through that. And they want me to watch Us, so I gotta put that on my priority list, which I have on Blu-ray. I bought that when I saw them. I was visiting them. Okay, enough. All right, bye for now.